Hey everybody, welcome to week 4. I hope you're having a great week. I look forward to seeing you in class next week. This week, as we're not in class, I wanted to do just a short recording, hopefully short, on the topics that we have for this week, which is program evaluation and accreditation. I could actually talk to you for a long time about program evaluation and accreditation, as it falls kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit at the School of Nursing. But this is more of an introductory sort of, what is this about? What does this mean? So if you're in an academic setting now, or you're going to go into an academic setting, you can understand what people are talking about, maybe why things are happening, and then sort of the behind the scenes process of this. This is not like the most exciting thing that we talk about, but it's something that we need to do to keep our doors open when we talk about program evaluation. We have just a few class outcomes that I'll cover tonight, and then if you remember, there's an assignment, a discussion board assignment. I'll have you do a couple more things outside of this recording to answer or participate in the discussion board. So we're going to talk about program evaluation. We're going to talk about accreditation, and then we'll look at some systematic evaluation plans. Okay, so when we talk about program evaluation, you think of all the things the program has. We have students, we have faculty, we have money, we have physical resources, we have fiscal resources, we have a dean. We have to sort of evaluate all of those pieces. And we need to do it systematically or with a process or with some purpose. We also use this process to report, and there's lots of people we report to: the state, our accrediting bodies, the university, the government. So we need sort of this systematic process of evaluating our program. And so we call this a systematic evaluation plan. I'll show you two actual ones, one from the School of Nursing and one from the nurse anesthesia program. Those are two that I work with pretty much every day. So you can see what one looks like. And then we will talk about what faculty role would be in this process. And then we'll get into accreditation a little bit. But we can't talk about program evaluation or accreditation separately. They sort of fit in the same wheelhouse because it's our accreditors that really tell us or dictate to us what we need to be evaluating and how. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The systematic evaluation plan, some people call it that. Some people call it a systematic plan of evaluation. I call it SEP, although people I work with have worked in different institutions and they call it SPE, which is confusing. Our director of our nurse anesthesia program calls it a master evaluation plan, MEP. So depending on where you go, there could be another name for it as well, but they're all meaning the same thing. It's sort of this overall plan. It's a physical living document, in fact, that we use to evaluate our programs. It is a blueprint. It tells us what we should be doing and when and how sometimes and what data we need to collect. So if you walked in to any school and said, what are you doing to meet standard blah, 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 it should be in their evaluation plan. I will tell you, this is a living document. I mean that, like, it has to be frequently visited, frequently revised as things change in the system or in the university or in the program. So this is not something you put on the shelf, dust it off when the accreditors come and put it out there. So when we figure out sort of who owns this document and what we do with it, it needs to be visited and updated, and people need to be made aware of it. Okay, so there should be goals, methods. How do we do it? What should we do? Frequency, and who should do it. So if you have a piece of this, you need to know that, A, and B, you need to know what you're responsible for doing. So really, it's a guide, and we make the guide. When the accreditors come in, they'll want to see the SEP, but they want to see the evidence of how the facility, the institution, the program is following the SEP. So I don't know if I mentioned I'm an on-site visitor for our CNEA for the NLN. When I go, I'll look at their SEP fine, it's a good document, whatever, but also what does this mean to you and how do you use it? So if we say we're doing something, right, great, it's on there, but how are you doing it? What data are you collecting? What evidence do you have that you're doing it? So these are benchmarks we need to meet. Sometimes we're putting benchmarks on. We need to complete 50% of something or meet something at 100%. These are also listed on our SEP. Okay. So again, kind of what I just said, how elements of the program interact or influence program effectiveness. So let's say we wanted to set our board pass rate for our undergraduate students at 10%. It's not very effective, right? That's terribly low. But also we might not want to say 100% because that's really hard to attain. So these outcomes or effectiveness we're measuring. And so when we don't meet them, right? So we have a benchmark. When we don't meet them, we need to go back. It's like nursing process. Did you meet your goal? No. Okay, let's go back and reassess and plan and implement again. And it really tells us, right, if we're looking at it, how effective we are. Mission goals and outcomes. We talked about mission goals and outcomes and congruence with those in our last session. Are we meeting those? Are we just saying that we're doing these things, or are we actually meeting those? And so I'll show you a couple examples. We'll need to address the mission in the essential or in the SEP, but also in our accrediting process. Determine whether the program has been implemented as planned. It's again, our blueprint, our guide. Why do we do things? Why do we implement certain things? Why do we not do certain things? So there may be certain things in your classes or your classes that you've had at other institutions. They're like, why are we doing this, right? As a student, why are we doing this? Maybe you've worked in other institutions as faculty. Why are we doing this? A lot of things we're doing because we're making decisions based on benchmarks, data we're collecting, and then making data-driven change so we do meet or exceed those benchmarks. And then resources needed, we look at fiscal, we look at physical, we look at faculty, we look at students. Do we have enough computers? Do we have enough chairs? Do we have a big enough sim lab? So we really want to kind of stop ourselves and check those and make sure we have enough. Okay. So the systematic evaluation plan and accreditation go hand in hand. They are two separate entities. One, the SEP is part of the accreditation process, but the SEP sort of can stand on its own. We need to report to lots of people, and we're guided in our processes. We talked about this with curriculum by lots of people at State Board of Nursing, our professional organizations, ANA, NLN, our nurse practitioner groups, our nurse anesthesia groups, NCLEX, National Council State Board. These are professional organizations. We have national accreditors and regional accreditors. And we get to accreditation, I'll talk about the difference in these and why you need both of them and why you want both of them. But we're constantly being looked at and we're held to these standards. We're held to these responsibilities. So we're not putting out crappy programs, that our graduates are really meeting or exceeding these things that we want them to meet or exceed. So when we talk about this evaluation process, it's continuous. And I've gone to schools as a site visitor, and I know they've started their program evaluation 8 months before I showed up at their door. This is not how we should do it. We should think about systematic evaluation or program evaluation continuously. Every day. I kind of think about it every day. I like to think about it. But we can't just wait until we are up for accreditation to think about this evaluation plan. That's really very evident when the accreditors come and all you have is data from 6 months out because they didn't collect anything. Okay, so I'll show you an example here in a second. I'll go off of Zoom and pull something else up, but our systematic evaluation plan and the master evaluation plan for the nurse anesthesia program are organized. You'll see how we organize them, and they show you this in the textbook in chapter 26 or 7, how it's organized. I have seen other ones that have been organized differently. We just choose to sort of organize it by standard through our national accreditor. If the university is accredited by Higher Learning Commission, they probably set theirs up the same way. And I'll show you a real life one here in a second. Okay, let me go to this slide. I think there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my screen here for a second. And I want to show you, first I'll show you this one because it's coming up first on my screen. Okay. So this is what the COA's accreditation grid looks like. And this is what we use for our nurse anesthesia program. So you can see key elements, activities, responsible, who's responsible for it, the time frame, and then supporting documents. And then the key elements, I'm kind of going off two screens here. So it has all these track changes on it because we're working on this document. It's a living document. Sometimes we need to change things. Sometimes department people change or names of things change. So we might need, and this is kind of what Dr. Ostrowski, and by the way, I got his permission to use this or to show you this. So this is proprietary, just so you know, so don't take a screenshot and run off with it. These are not hidden documents. These are not public documents, but they are documents that if you are an employee or faculty member, you have right to see and you should be seeing it. Okay, now this is very, very long. If I were to show you this, it's 172 pages, not going to do that to you. But I just want to show you sort of the blocks. So what he does, and I'll show you a piece of this in a second, is go through each one and what should we be doing? This is the plan. And who should be doing that? And when should we be doing that? And then what documentation do we need? So when the accreditors eventually do come, they'll say, show me evidence of A1 or A2. And so we'll pull from these documents to say, here's this evidence, and this is what we've collected. This is how often we do it, and this is who does it, and this is what we do, and it matches the key elements, so it's all aligned. Okay, now give me a second. I'm going to pull up the, I think it's over here. Talk amongst yourself. I had this all ready to go. And I'm failing myself now. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the School of Nursing, SEP. Okay, so you should be seeing this. And this, again, a live document. You can see this is being edited. There's some kind of highlights in it. We're still kind of working on getting this in a final document. Why is that? Because I'll show you in a second, or you'll actually look at this for your homework. CCNE, which is our accreditor, recently changed their standards as recent as April or May. So we're converting our systematic evaluation plan from the old version to the new version, and the new standards will go into effect in 2025. So we're getting things ready. So we're adjusting and adapting. The standards changed some, but not a lot, but enough so that we'll need to re-edit and then revisit. Again, it's a living document. We organize ours the same way. Element, who's responsible, how often, what evidence, and then expected outcome. Those are the benchmarks. Now, as we're revising, I'll tell you, we're getting more specific. So we want alumni evaluations, right? And what we're just saying is we're using alumni evaluations for pieces of data. What we're doing now in this process is deciding, do we want 20%, 10%, 15%? Alumni evaluations are very difficult to get back. End of semester evaluation, what benchmark do we want? What do we want to try to achieve? Survey data, you guys know around 40% is probably a good submission rate if we get like 40% back. So we're going to make, I think, another column and talk about specific benchmarks, or try to tighten up some of those expected outcomes and make those benchmarks. Okay, so you can see this is a live living document. very, very long, separated by standards. Again, this is proprietary, so don't take screenshots and send them to the internet. Not that this is secret. This is available on our faculty and staff soul site. The old one is. The revision, once it's approved, will go there as well. So not secret. We don't want it to be a secret, but we are still working on it. Okay, so let's take a closer look. You should be seeing my PowerPoint again. Let's take a closer look at, let me make sure you are, okay, at what each of these say. So I just cut and pasted just a little bit. And you can see now, I want you to go to the center column. This is about mission, vision, values. Every accreditor, the three main accreditors, NLN, CCNE, and ASIN, their first standard 1A, or ours is 1 whatever or whatever, is about mission and vision. We talked about with our program curriculum development and program development, how this needs to be congruent with the mission. This is why. And I even cited, I think, the standard when we talked about that. So who's responsible? The program committee is the total faculty committee, and then there was a task force. So if I am the chair of the program committee, the total faculty committee, or the mission and vision task force, I need to be aware of this. You can see what I need to be doing. Every 4 years, we're revising these documents, and we need these matrices. And I showed you some boxes last week. That's actually the living document that would be evidence, and this is why I picked this one, so you can see evidence of our revisions. And so when the accreditors come, we're going to have that document as evidence that we are revising the mission and having input in it. The other thing that we did when we revised the mission is we had stakeholder input, where we sent this out to our communities of interest, our alumni, our students, our faculty, our staff, and we collected their thoughts and ideas when we revised the mission and vision. So I have all of those. We did it through Qualtrics. I have all the Qualtrics surveys and results, and then we did some surveying after that. So I have all of that evidence as well. So when the visitors come and I need to show evidence of this, I'm not only going to include those matrices, but all of our Qualtrics surveys to show that we did reach out to stakeholders, students, faculty, staff, to get their input on the mission. Okay, so this is one of them. I want to show you a second one. Let's go to this one. Okay, so this is CCNE Standard 3A. This is about curriculum. So Standard 1 is kind of about the institution. Standard 2, the dean is in Standard 2 and some fiscal things. Standard 3 is curriculum. Standard 4 is really faculty. So this is Standard 3. It's looking at the curriculum. So you can see the curriculum is developed, implemented, and revised. So congruent with the roles. I think I showed you this one earlier as well. So when we talk about creating those program outcomes, we had to use those professional standards. So again, this standard sort of guided what we do with our program outcome revision every 4 years, or if we need another change. Now look at all the people involved with this, our curriculum committees, our program directors, the associate deans, assessment evaluation. There's a lot of people that have hands in this. If I'm the chair of the curriculum committee, I need to know this, and I need to know what my part is in it. So if I'm chairing the committee, I need to know what minutes I have to collect. I need to know what things I need to address during the academic year to meet these standards. Okay, so you can see the expected outcomes. Review expected student outcomes of each program for clarity, congruency with WVU, the Health Science Center, School Mission Vision. So these are things we need to do at least every 4 years. You can do it more often. You can do it less often. We have this discussion. Should it say every 4 years in August? Should it say annually in September? Do we want to be that prescriptive? I've seen some schools that are that prescriptive to say when and do it exactly when, and then COVID hit and it blew everything up. So in reviewing some schools after COVID, it really jacked up their timeline. And so we've kind of kept this kind of vague. But if I'm reviewing this and it says every 4 years, and it was last reviewed in 24, I'll say, give me your 24 data. I want to look at the 28 data and then moving forward. So I'm not as stuck on it. Was it January of 24 or was it February 24? I just want to know is in 2024. So I want that evidence to align. Now, this is one of the nurse anesthesia, element 1A. You can see kind of the same, but look, what comes first? Mission 1A mission. So regardless of accrediting bodies, most of them, I would say, I haven't looked at everybody, but I'll say nearly all of them, we think about that mission. Why did we talk about that in week 3 and not in week 10? Because when you're starting to develop your curriculum, this is sort of what's kind of leading your development or consideration in development of your curriculum is that mission and vision. By the way, this particular program has follows the WVU mission and vision, the school of nursing mission and vision, and then they have one particular to this program, this nurse anesthesia program. So they actually are guided, or their curriculum is dictated by 3. Okay, so why am I saying all this? Will you ever have to write or look at this? Yeah, you might. As faculty, you have to know what it is. So I've worked at lots of places, and at WVU, it's really the only school that it wasn't part of our daily, weekly meetings or talk about it. We've tried over the last year to really involve faculty, to get faculty to understand what their role is. Bigger schools, there are probably certain people that do it. Smaller schools, probably everybody has their hands in this. So if you would go into an academic role, you really want to understand what it is and what your part is in it. Where is it? Where do I find this? How do I read this? If you are a committee member or especially a chair, you'll need to be very aware of what your role is in that committee. What piece of that does that committee belong to? And then what needs to be minutes or evidence if I'm the chair, because that's the chair's responsibility to collect those things. Okay, so kind of just a summary and some real life pieces of what a systematic evaluation plan, master evaluation plan, systematic plan of evaluation look like. Again, the physical document isn't doing the work. It's the people in the physical document doing the work that's prescribed, measuring what they're supposed to be measuring, and so important, keeping evidence. I was at a school recently that had the most beautiful program. They just really dotted all the I's, except we said, where's your evidence of that meeting or that conversation or that decision? And they didn't have evidence. They were like scrambling when we were there to try to find emails or something. They would make a decision, kind of an offhanded conversation, and implement that, like in the lunchroom, and then implement that, but have no evidence of that meeting or the data they used. So this is I learned a lot through that visit. So this is just very, very, very important that we keep accurate records, good records of decisions that we're making. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about accreditation. Again, I could talk to you for weeks about accreditation. You don't want to, it's kind of boring. Again, what's your responsibility as a faculty member? Understand what it is, understand your role, understand how important it is to the functioning of your program or your school. So again, this is sort of like the hidden word. Nobody talks about it until 2 years before the visit comes or the visitors come. It shouldn't be like that. Accreditation should be something we talk about daily, monthly, weekly in our meetings. What are we doing to meet it? What are we looking at? Okay, so I want to explain something to you. So the national accreditors, I have each standard from the 3 national accreditors, NLN, CNEA, CCNE, and ASIN in the folder for week 4. You'll need to look at those standards or have those pulled up when you answer your discussion board for this week. Okay, so there's national accreditors, 3, and then regional accreditation. So the national accreditors accredit the nursing program. The regional accreditors accredit the university or the school. So you can see these examples: Higher Learning Commission, Middle States. There's Southern States, I think, Northern States, Middle States, New England Association, Commissions on Institution of Higher Ed. WVU is Higher Ed Learning Commission. It's all over all our websites. You can see if you go to the PhD or the DNP site on the website, it's there. So we have to show that. As part of the accreditation process, it has to be public knowledge who our accreditors are. If, by the way, we would go on a provisional or probationary accreditation status for some reason, that has to be made public. So we have to be able to communicate to the public who's our creditor and what our status is, and that's usually done via website. We also have these in our handbooks that are posted online. Okay, so National Accreditation Program. So the program is accredited through a national accreditor, and then the university or the school, wherever the program is housed, needs to have one of these as their regional accreditors. Okay, now why? Look at our admission criteria. So the university establishes their admission criteria. We have to follow that. So we need to be as strict as them, but we can also add other criteria to it. So the DNP, Nurse Anesthesia Program, look what it says: Bachelor of Science in Nursing from nationally accredited program, regionally accredited institution. So if a student is a graduate of an institution that doesn't have a regional accreditation, they can't come into our program. MSN, this is for the FNPs, Bachelor of Science in Nursing from nationally accredited nursing program and regionally accredited institution. So again, why do you need your program to be nationally and regionally accredited? Because it opens doors for your graduates. I was at a visit in a school in Florida and in Miami, and there were tons of nursing schools in Miami. And this was a very small, privately owned nursing program that was trying to go for national accreditation because none of the larger facilities, clinical facilities in Miami, would accept their students for clinical because they weren't nationally accredited. They had all these other schools that had national accreditation, and they said, we'll take yours. Like all these big facilities into ICU, CCU, acute care, trauma, level 1, NICUs. And the students in this school were going to dialysis centers and long-term rehab and different types of clinical experiences. The students really wanted to go to those big hospitals. Also, by the way, the big hospitals would not hire them if they were not nationally accredited because of this kind of competitive job market. It really was eye-opening, because when as part of our visit, when we talked to alumni, they just talked about how much it would mean to them personally to have graduated from a nationally accredited school. So by the way, because they had graduates, and you have to have provisional things, you have to kind of run your program for a while before you can get accredited. Once they get national accreditation, it's retroactive. So the students that graduated from that program when it wasn't accredited can then, once they achieve national accreditation, they can put it on the resume. BSN, by the way, so when we have students who want to transfer credits into our BSN program, we cannot transfer them in. This is a WVU policy unless they come from a school that has regional accreditation. There is a big one of these in Morgantown that produce a lot of students, and they can't transfer their degree, their math credits, their English credits in because they are not regionally accredited. They have a nationally accredited nursing program. They just recently got that, but their institution is not regionally accredited by any of those accreditors, so we can't accept their transfer credits. So having these accreditation status is actually very, very important. Okay, now the State Board of Nursing, we've kind of not talked about State Board of Nursing. We got to abide by their standards too. And so the State Board of Nursing really has a lot more regulations than for pre-licensure or undergrad programs than it does for graduate programs, but we still follow all the rules. So while I'm not talking about the state, we are still needing to consider our State Board of Nursing, especially West Virginia, and abiding by what they need to do. Okay, so a school could lose their accreditation but still operate. It's just their graduates are kind of screwed if they want to go to graduate school. They can be put on probation. They can have provisional accreditation. So there's some things they can do if they're not meeting things, but they're not losing their accreditation. If they would lose their accreditation, that would drastically affect their students. Okay, and then the higher ed at CHEI, I had this on another slide, Council for Higher Education Accreditation, and this is through the U.S. Department of Education. So the Department of Education does dictate some things that we do. One of the things that is recently developed is accommodations for when we use videos, like I'm using Zoom today, with the transcripts. Those students who are hearing impaired would need to have the transcription aside so they could read the transcription or closed caption. So when things are on YouTube, you can put the transcription or the closed caption up. When things are not on YouTube, you need to provide the transcript. This is actually trickling down through the Department of Education that's telling us we need to do this. So you may see as you move through your courses that some of your videos are moved to YouTube so that they have the transcription available to them. Okay. So I talked about the three main accreditors. Those are national accreditation. We do have specialty accreditors. The COA is one of them. There's in midwifery schools, Accreditation Commission on Midwifery Education. So if we had a midwifery program, not only would we need to have CCNE approve that program, we would also need this ACME to approve the program. So the nurse anesthesia program carries two. They have COA and they have CCNE. So thereby they have to play both games. If we had a midwifery program, they would need to as well. So this just complicates things a little bit. But when we talk about curriculum development, and if we were developing the midwifery program, we would have to revise our curriculum based on state board, CCNE, and also, and I've looked at these standards, they are very, very, very strict and prescriptive. So we would use those as our guide. Okay, now I just want to go through very quickly. Again, I put these standards on SOL for your homework tonight, but the differences between them and some similarities. So ASIN is older. He's kind of in the middle. CCNA has probably been around for a while, ASIN. But you can see the different programs they will accredit. We typically see ASIN in diploma programs, LPN programs, and ADN programs, but they can and do accredit other things. They have a board of commissioners, and what 15-member board, so these people are making these decisions, and they look at these standards in practice, public, in the 15 board commissioner, there's somebody from practice, somebody from the public, and somebody from service. This is how they just divide that. Okay, so for ASIN, they do a full review every 5 years, and their process is a self-study. So they would look at our self-study. What a self-study is we write, here's how we know we're great. It's in a document form, and we put evidence into the self-study. Then ASIN comes to visit. They write up what they see. The visitor's job, and when I say I'm a site visitor, the visitor's job is to go in to basically find evidence that they're doing what they're saying they're doing in their self-study. So it's just fact-finding. And then after the visit, we write up our findings from the visit. We send all of the information back in a board to an evaluation panel for ASIN, and then they would have a board of commissioners. So the visitors are very important. When we go to site visits, we say, we do not decide if your program's getting accredited or not. We are just here to collect stuff, to collect information, data, to confirm what you're doing, to make sure there's evidence of those things. Okay, and then accreditation can be up to an 8-year term in ASIN. CCNE, this is what our program is accredited by. And remember, the curriculum arm of CCNE is AACN. By the way, these are kind of hand in glove. CCNE is the only accrediting body that prescribes curriculum. ASIN and NLN, CNEA don't. They don't say exactly what you need to have in your curriculum like CCNE. And you're going to look at CCNE's document for your homework. Now, I've looked at schools that are CNEA and NLN accredited, and they do use the essentials, the AACN essentials, but they don't have to. So when like we talked about with curriculum development, we have a prescribed curricula based on those outcomes we have to meet. So we have BSN, MSN, DNP. Nurse residency programs are accredited by CCNE. PhD programs are not. PhD programs are accredited by the institution. So the PhD program is accredited by Higher Learning Commission. Most programs are like that. CCNE does not accredit PhD programs, nor does CNEA, nor does ASIN. But we have the PhD program in our systematic evaluation plan. So we're kind of doing some of the same things with the PhD program, with the data we're collecting, that we are for our other programs. So this is where the systematic evaluation plan and our accreditation kind of differ a little bit. So CNE, 13-member board, and there's core values. We'll talk about those. 6 steps to this: self-study, visit, peer evaluation report, program response, review committee, and then board of commissioners. So they may come for a visit and have some peer evaluations. And let's say they say your program stinks, there's something wrong with it. We can actually make a response back and provide more evidence if we want. Okay. New programs reviewed after 5 years, and then a 10-year cycle. So in the middle of that is a mid-cycle report. And let's see if this will work. We actually just, I'm going to show you this again, proprietary. Don't go take pictures of it, not that you care. This is what a mid-cycle report looks like. So we sent this in to, or this is what the standards look like. So we sent our CCNE report in June 1. It was due June 1 of this year. So we're 5 years into the cycle. So, oh wait, that's what I want to show you. Hold on a second. This does not look right. There we go. That was, there we go. Okay, this is what CIPR. We had over 700 pages of appendices, probably closer to 900 pages of appendices. And this is just data they asked us to write about, things we needed to respond to. So this document itself, I think, is probably, we couldn't make it any more than 75 pages, the actual document, but we had a lot of appendices. So if I can scroll down here, this took us a year to do. I want to show you this one. This was part of our evidence, and this was what, when we talked about revision of our mission and vision and values, and here's the survey that we did for our stakeholders. This is all evidence that we use, and we put this into our 5-year progress report. So there wasn't any question about what we did or how we collected our data. Okay. So CNEA is the last one, and this again is who I volunteer for. At one time, ASIN was by itself with CCNE, and then NLN sort of broke off from ASIN. So he is the new kid on the block, although there are a lot of schools that are changing from CCNE to NLN. And you can see NLN does CCNE, or CNEA does PN diploma, ASN, BSN, MSN, postgrad. So there's lots of things that they do. They have 5 standards: culture, caring, diversity, integrity, and excellence. And you'll see these in your document. 3-step process pre-accreditation, and then they do a pre-accreditation visit. Then they give the school 3 years to develop a self-study. Then we do an on-site evaluation. And then once they're initially accredited will go back 6 years later, and then 10 years after that. So just a little bit of difference through the accrediting body. Okay, so when our school comes up for accreditation, we're 5 years in. So 5 years from now, 2028, we'll get ready or be anticipating a site visit. However, we're already working on it. We're already making sure our SEP is in good shape. We have a resource room on Sol where we put our data. We have plans for data collection and things we need to do. So 1 to 3 years before the visit, in my mind, this is every day before the visit, so you're ready, but it needs to be ongoing. And that SEP, that systematic evaluation plan, is really what guides us in this. So I've talked a little bit about the self-study. So the self-study is basically a narrative that talks about how we meet each standard. So the most recent self-study, 2018, we have access to it in the school. People can see that, but it is not public. And it is an internal document that we use. So who writes it depends on every school. I've worked in schools where the director writes it. I worked in schools where they appoint somebody, they hire somebody to write it. I worked in this school where I think I'm going to be writing some of it. And so, but it's a group effort. So everybody's voice needs to be heard. When we wrote the CIPR, the mid-cycle review, we probably have 15 different people working on it and contributing to the process. So it is a lot of work. Who does it depends on where you work or really what their philosophy is. There are lots of webinars that people can do prior to writing the self-study. Our nurse anesthesia program, we are currently writing the self-study for their on-site visit in the fall. And Dr. Ostrowski went to a webinar and a conference to help understand a little bit more about how to write that. Data-driven change and feedback. So we made this change based on this data. And how did this work? Well, let's evaluate that. This is something that we're really working on now with our data-driven change and what things we're doing and how we're assessing it, what changes we're making, how we're assessing those. We capture this in meeting minutes, and I cannot express to you how very, very important those meeting minutes are. That's where the evidence is that we're doing this work. Self-studies also contain a lot of appendices and tables to show congruency. When we have an on-site visit, depending on how big the program is, there could be 2 to 5 or 6 site visitors. There are 2 coming for the RCOA visit in the fall. I think the last time we had a CCNE visit, I think there were 5 visitors. There'll probably be more the next time we go out for accreditation because we've added some more programs and some more campuses. And they send us an agenda and they say, we're doing these people here, these people here. It's a very tight agenda. We do tours. Our COA visitors are going to some of our regional campuses, our regional clinical sites, to visit where the CRNA students go. So it's a lot of meetings and a lot of talking. Again, they're coming to make sure they're collecting the on-site evidence to validate that we're doing what we're saying we're doing. I also mentioned this word resource room. It can be a physical room, or it can be an online platform. I've done both. The visit I did in Florida, they had a physical room, and when we walked in, they just had banker's boxes full of papers, and we just started going at the papers. They did that because they didn't have a learning management system or an LMS like a Sol or a Blackboard. Most people use some type of LMS to house their documents. That's how we house our documents. So we would have an electronic resource room. The school I was at earlier this year, they did a Google Drive, and so their documents were on Google Drive. So it's a virtual resource room, or literally physical resource room, or sometimes a combination. But this is where the evidence is. This is where the accreditor, the site visitors will sit and go through your information. So it's their home base. Make them comfortable. Coffee, water, soda, a bathroom, copier, some paper, so we be ready for those. I went to the school in Miami. They had the best resource room. They had like all kinds of junk. Rice Krispie treats. They had a big refrigerator that was filled. It was great because you're tired and you're hungry and you want something to eat. Another place I went had nothing. They didn't care. They didn't have anything. We didn't even have a peanut. So that's okay too. But probably when our visitors come, we're going to know to be ready. Okay. So this is all I have for you for this week. Now you do have a discussion board. You'll need to review the 3 documents that I have posted on SOL, the CNEA document, the CCNE document, and the ASIN document. These are not hard. This is not a hard read. This is a browse, look through them to kind of answer those questions. This is our first discussion board of the semester, so this is how this works. So you'll need to post to the discussion board and answer those questions yourself by Thursday at 11:55 p.m. And then you'll need to wait for others to respond and respond to at least one peer. You can respond to more if you want. Read through their posts, see what they said, give a couple sentence responses. And that needs to be by Sunday at 11:55. Why 55 and 59? Because SOL will only go to 55. Okay, so remember, I have the rubric beside this. So your answer is substantive, right? 3 to 5 sentences or more. That you're clear in your explanations, provide examples or why you thought about something, and then 1 post to appear. This is all you need to do on time for 20 points for the discussion board. Okay, email me with questions you have as you work through this week. I'm happy to answer them, get on Zoom with you, email, whatever you need, and I'm looking forward to see you in person next week. So thank you for putting up with my computer glitches and finding information. I appreciate you all, and I will see you next week.